Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Adult Drug Court and Veterans Treatment Court Planning, Training, and Technical Assistance and Resource Center Initiative, FY19 Competitive Grant Announcement. This webinar is hosted by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. At this time, I would like to introduce you to today's presenter, Gregory Terrain.
Correct, yes.
With the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for participating in today's Adult Drug Court, Veteran Treatment Court, TTA Solicitation webinar. Again, my name is Gregory Terrain. I am the Policy Advisor for BJA's Adult Drug Court Discretionary Grant Program. Really excited to have you all on today. As you know, drug courts are a critical component to the criminal justice system in terms of addressing those with addiction. And a critical component of the drug court program is our TTA providers, providing training and technical assistance both to BJA's grantees as well as to the field. So again, thank you all, and we'll move forward. So as an overview, what we'll be going over at today's webinar, we'll talk about the history of drug court funding. We'll go over the administration's priorities, and the priorities are very important to understand those priorities as they contribute to how BJA makes its funding, as well as the goals of the drug court program and then the purpose of the TTA. We'll go over the eligibility requirements. We'll talk about the funding categories. We'll review the application sections, and then at the end, we'll have a question and answer. So moving on to our funding. So the Department of Justice Appropriations funds drug courts with two appropriations. First being the Adult Drug Court, which consists of adult drug courts, DWI, co-occurring courts, and tribal illness and wellness courts, and then the other appropriations for veteran treatment courts. So you can see over the past 3 years what the funding level has been. As you can see, between the from 2016 to 2019, the budget has went pretty much has doubled from the 48 to almost to 99 million. So you can see there's been a lot of progress towards what we do in terms of our work with our funding, and just to give you an idea of how much funding that we do receive and to support our drug court program. All right, administration's priorities. So there's several priorities that are listed on here, and again, it's important to understand these priorities because they're tied to our funding. First is administering strategies that address the opioid crisis. One thing I want to mention that with this funding, 2 years ago, this funding has been attached to the President's budget for opioids. So this is one of OJP's strategy to address the opioid crisis. So within your application, you definitely want to indicate how you would address the opioid crisis through your training and technical assistance. Also support law enforcement and other criminal justice partners, promoting evidence-based practices, ensuring that veterans have access to the care they need, and providing access to both tribal and rural communities with a specific focus on high crime rates, and then establishing a sustainability plan. As a TTA provider, we'll be looking for providers who have experience in being able to work with our grantees in terms of helping them develop sustainability plans. The goal, so currently BJA funds on average and provide technical assistance to over 220 drug courts throughout the United States through our Adult Drug Court and Veteran Treatment Court program. The goal of the program is to equip courts and community supervision systems with the necessary tools and resources, utilizing the most current evidence-based practices and principles to intervene with participants who abuse substances while preparing them for success in their community. The purpose of the TTA is to provide a wide range of TTA to both our grantees as well as the field. BJA is looking for providers to be able to identify and implement cost-effective strategies, maintain a list of expert consultants, expand TTA services that are consistent with the administration's priorities, and support both national and federal partners, as well as the TTA collaborative, which would be those that are identified as TTA providers. We'll be looking for you to work in collaboration with each other as needed. BJA understands that with this solicitation, there's a wide range of expertise and experience that is needed, and BJA welcomes applications whose proposals include collaboration of multiple partners. It's important to understand that only one person can be the applicant, or one entity can apply as the applicant. Applicants must be the entity that will be the primary responsibility for carrying out the administration of this award, and any entity may also be proposed as a subrecipient in more than one of the applications, in more than one application. BJA is looking for its TTA providers to have the expert knowledge on drug courts and the various type of drug courts. Again, that's looking at the type of drug courts we fund is the adult drug courts, DWI courts, co-occurring courts, as well as veteran treatment courts and tribal illness and wellness courts. BJA's adult drug court discretionary grant program does not fund family treatment courts nor juvenile justice treatment courts. Extensive experience in brokering and developing TA, experience in identifying and implementation of best practices, and have experience in program documentation, resource compilation, as well as information dissemination. And the willingness to work with BJA's partners and members of the TTA collaborative, which I mentioned from the last slide, and also have expert knowledge on sustainability of drug courts. So those that are eligible are limited to for-profit and nonprofit organizations, those including tribal organizations, faith-based and community organizations, and institutions of higher education, including tribal institutions of higher education that demonstrate expertise in assisting communities. It's important to note that all recipients and subrecipients, including any for-profit organizations, must forego any profit or management fees when applying or if you receive the award. So the solicitation was released in February 12th, and it closes April 16th. I believe that gives us potentially about 3 to 4 weeks. 7 awards with an estimated total amount of $20.7 million will be awarded. The period of performance is 24 months. This is different from the previous TTA that we had. Last time this was in 2016 that we put this out. So it was only 12 months. We extended it to 24 months. That's new. This award is a cooperative agreement, and the start date is January 1st, 2020, and there are 6 categories within the solicitation. The first being category 1 being the Adult Drug Court Plan Initiative. An applicant can apply up to $2.9 million for that category. Category 2 combines 2 awards, the Adult Drug Training Initiative, up to $4.4 million, and the National Drug Court Resource Center, and that's up to $1.6 million. Category 3, the Adult Drug Court Site-Based TTA, that is up to $5.4 million. Then we have Category 4, the State-Based TA, it's up to $2.4 million that you can request. The new category that we included this year is Category 5, the Veteran Treatment Court Site-Specific TTA, and this is $2 million that you can apply up to. And then we have Category 6, the Tribal Illness to Wellness Court Site-Specific TTA, up to $2 million. One thing I want to note is that the BJA may make an additional award for opioid-focused TTA within this Category 6. More information will come out related to that. This was not in the original solicitation, so this is new information for those who are participating on this, but we will have a frequently asked question, or FAQ, that will be more in detail to come. So going to the Category 1, the Planning Initiative. The purpose of the Planning Initiative is really to work with new drug courts that are looking to implement within their new jurisdictions, and they demonstrated interest in developing and implementing a new drug court. This is specific to adult drug courts, veteran treatment courts, and tribal illness to wellness court. The provider will coordinate with the selected VTC TTA as well as the selected tribal illness wellness TTA provider on a BTC plan initiative as well as a tribal illness wellness planning initiative. Category 2, awardee 1, is the drug court training initiative. The selected provider will offer a menu of 22 BJA approved trainings. Some of those things will be conduct a minimum of 50 on-site trainings along with up to 26 statewide sponsored trainings per year. Update and maintain the training curricula on the DCTI website, and host a trainer operational tune-ups. which are for drug courts that have been operational already and are looking to enhance their current training or may need some assistance with updating some skills within their drug court program, and also ensuring that their curriculum is updated with the most identified needs and emerging issues. Then awardee 2 is the National Drug Court Resource Center. The NCJRS serves as a repository for drug court information, so all information related to drug courts, this is like a one-stop shop. And the selected provider will be responsible for maintaining this one-stop shop in terms of collecting, updating its database, maintaining a searchable online map of all drug courts, conducting a biannual drug court survey and publishing those reportings, develop and disseminating drug court evidence-based practices, that being fact sheets, videos, case law development, podcasts, and other webinars. Example, this would be one of the things that would be on the website. Anything related to drug courts would be on the National Drug Court Resource Center, as well as collecting, curating, and cataloging all information related to drug courts. Category 3, the drug court site-based TA. This is provide technical assistance. This TTA is really tailored to individual grantees in terms of what are their particular needs. They will conduct site visits and assess approximately 90 newly BJA-funded drug courts and veteran treatment courts. So what this process is, whenever BJA makes new awards, our provider will conduct site visits of those awards and do an assessment of where they're at in the beginning stages of receiving their application or receiving their award, and also will conduct follow-ups. Also conduct strategic planning meetings, assist program and design, and review data collection and analysis. Also, they will be working with the state-based TTA provider or the TA provider to ensure maximum coordination in delivering TA to local grantees and working with the state coordinators. And then develop and or maintain drug court TA websites. Then category 4 is our state-based TA, and this is provided to BJA's for BJA has within our adult drug court discretionary grant program. One of our categories is that we fund state entities to implement drug courts throughout the state, as well as implement strategic plans within the state. The state-based TTA provider would be directly geared toward working with state court administrators and providing them with assistance as it relates to planning, operations, data collection, those different things that they would need within that state to help move their agenda forward in terms of addressing drug courts. They provide TA to a pool of approximately 40 state coordinators. They'll work with site-specific TA provider to ensure maximum coordination and delivering TA at the state and local levels. They will develop a uniform TA request form and protocols for grantees and implement a mechanism to track that. Then we have category 5, which is our VTC site-specific TTA. Again, this is our new category this year. It is providing, the provider will be responsible for delivering services that are consistent with both the VCT model as well as NADC's best practices and the VCT 10 key components. They will provide a wide range of on-site and off-site TTA, conduct site visits, and again assess approximately 20 newly funded BJA veteran treatment courts, and they will develop a mechanism to track the recommendations based off the TA they provide. And they will also do a conference also at annual conference each year. And then category 6, the last of the categories, is the tribal illness to wellness site-specific TA. The provider will be responsible for providing a wide range of comprehensive on-site, off-site TA that is consistent with the tribal key components as well as the best practice standards. Again, they will develop a uniform TTA or TA request process. They will conduct site visits to 15 newly BJA grantees or BJA tribal wellness courts grantees and conduct a national enhancement training. And just to go back, each of those categories, as you'll be able to see, is not exhaustive of all of the information or all the deliverables that's in the solicitation, but wanted to go over some of the ones that are just key to each of the categories. Moving on to the application section, so we have the SF 424, which is in the solicitation on page 15. One thing to note with the 424 is that you want to make sure that when you're completing that form, one, make sure that the amount that you're requesting matches within the budget, and then also, two, that you use the correct legal name of your organization. That can cause challenges once you receive award. And then the project abstract is required for this grant on page 16. Everything that you see required by means pretty much it's required. If you don't submit that information, your application won't get further than the first screening process. Then you have the program narrative, which is pretty much the beef of the application. Again, that is required, obviously. On pages 16 to 18, you'll find information regarding the project narrative. And I'll talk a little more about the project abstract, the project narrative, and some of the other documents. And then the budget detail worksheet, also required. There's more information on page 18. You got information on proposed subawards, as well as proposed procurement contracts. That information can be seen on page 19. And then you have indirect cost rate agreement, if applicable, on page 21. And a tribal authorization resolution. You have the fiscal management and systems of internal controls questionnaire, which you must fill out. And then you have disclosure of lobbying activities, also which you must fill out. If there's no lobbying activity within your organization, you still have to fill out the form. You would just put NA. And then we'll move on to the additional attachments. So I want to make I think in the past when we do get the additional attachment piece, a lot of times applicants create one attachment and they list everything on that attachment. What I would recommend, if you do attachments separately for each item, just because when we have reviewers reviewing them, sometimes they may miss something that's in the attachment. So it's an important note to make sure you do that. And also make sure you label each attachment what it is. If it's a project timeline, you want to put that as a title of the attachment and so forth on. Again, the project timeline is required. You also want to submit your resumes, the letters of support, also any work product examples that you have, application disclosure of proposed subrecipients. Again, if you have subrecipients that you need to complete that information. Pending applications, if you have an application that's out with another agency that you're applying for, you need to also indicate that information as well. Disclosure of justification, DOJ's high-risk grantees. If you have been identified as a DOJ high-risk grantees, there's also information you have to submit to BJA related to that in your application. We also have another attachment is the research and evaluation, independence and integrity, and then request for justification for employee compensation. And one note related to that, and you will see that information on page 13, the waiver should be included in a detailed justification in the budget narrative of the application. So in the abstract, again, I'll mention this again, the abstract is required. Again, what you want to have in that, you want to obviously say what category you're applying to. You want to be able to describe your partnerships and how they contribute to the goals of the TTA collaborative. Describe collaboration with partners that will assist BJA's grantees in the field implement evidence-based practices. And you want to be able to describe your experience in being able to provide interactive training based on the adult learning theory. Tailor your assistance to the target audience. Ability to develop and expand on online distance learning resources. And ability to develop uniform protocols for evaluating and reporting on program and drug court trends. One thing I want to note again as it relates to the abstract, so BJA through it provides an abstract template. It only allows you up to 400 words limit. If you need more than 400 words, then you would need to do an attachment or add an attachment for your abstract. Just want to make note of that because the template only allows you the 400 words. Program narrative. As you can see on the top, double space using 12-point font. All that information is extremely critical that you follow that. If an application does not have that or exceeds the 20 pages, again, it won't make it past the first screening process. The sections within the project narrative is a statement of the problem. In categories 1 through 6, each one for each of the categories has the same percentage of ranking. So you have, again, first the statement of problem, the project design and the implementation. You have the capabilities and competence, how you plan on moving forward with providing those deliverables. You have the impact outcomes, the performance measures data and collection data plan, as well as your budget and budget narrative. So you can see what each of those percentages for the application. In regards to your budget narrative, the application should use the Excel version when completing the proposed budget in the application. It's an itemized budget for each year, so this solicitation is for 24 months, so you should include a budget for 24 months. That's within the amount indicated for that category. This solicitation does not require a match, but very important, but if you volunteer a match, an amount and is provided and is approved by OJP, that approved budget becomes mandatory and subject to audit. And prior approvals for any conference, you would need prior approval for planning or reporting any conference or meetings. Also, applicants should demonstrate in their application cost-effective strategies for delivering TA services, should detail why planned in-person meetings are necessary as compared to virtual meetings, and should demonstrate how technology and collaboration with outside organizations could be used to reduce costs without compromising quality. And then the project timeline, again, like I mentioned earlier, that is a required document that needs to be in your application. It should outline your goals and objectives and summarize your major activities, including having expected dates of completion and who is the responsible agencies or individuals that will be a part of that project timeline. So again, this is my contact information. Even after we've finished with this webinar today, please take a minute to take my contact information down and contact me if you have further questions beyond the questions that we get during today's webinar.
So we're going to be, before we start with questions, we are going to go over a few things that might help you along the way. We would like you to stay connected to BJA, obviously. There's a couple ways that you can do that. You can follow them on social media through Facebook, Twitter, and they also have an RSS feed. That information is showing right now on the screen. They have their website, and then there's more information showing on the screen about the Adult Drug Court and Veteran Treatment Court website, and so you can use that as you develop your proposal and if you need additional resources. We also have some funding information or resources here that can help you. The OJP has a funding resource center and an application resource guide that can help you along, as well as the DOJ financial guide. We suggest that you refer to that when working on the financial aspects of your application. There is a financial management online training, and then if you're looking for information about other programs that are currently out there and if they're effective or not effective, NIJ has the Crime Solutions website, crimesolutions.gov, and you can refer to that. As Greg mentioned, you may, within the application, on the second page, I believe, of the solicitation, you can find information for the National Criminal Justice Reference Service. That information is listed there if you have need assistance with the application process. You can also contact them via email, grants@ncjrs.gov, and they also have a web chat and toll-free number. In addition, another good way to stay in touch with BJA as well as the other agencies within the Office of Justice Programs is to sign up to receive their Just Info newsletter and their funding newsletter that comes out every Friday. That funding newsletter will announce new opportunities from the Office of Justice Programs, alert you to upcoming webinars, and also alert you to when items from the webinars have been posted to the appropriate website. If you're having technical problems submitting your application, please contact Grants.gov and they will help you along. Their customer support hotline number is listed here, as well as their email address. They are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, except for federal holidays. Lastly, before we get into the question and answer portion, BJA earlier this year conducted 4 webinars. And those webinars, you can access the recordings and transcripts as well as the PowerPoint slides at the URL listed below. These webinars were developed around submitting and preparing your application. The first webinar kind of highlighted the funding opportunities that were going to be offered from BJA for 2019. And then the remaining 3 webinars were really geared towards helping you prepare your application, providing you with tips on the funding process and things that you should know, as well as common mistakes that are made when submitting your application, so the items that you should avoid. So at this point in time, we will go ahead and move into questions. It does not look like we have any questions submitted at this time, so we will give you a minute or two to see if there's anything that you would care to ask Greg. Take this opportunity while he is here to pick his brain.
Yes.
I will leave the slide here and give you a minute or two if you would like to write down the URL for the BJA funding resource series at https://www.bja.gov/funding/webinars.html. And these are really good resources. They're each about an hour long, give or take, but it would provide a lot of insight into the funding process. Again, the National Criminal Justice Reference Service is also here to help you in your application process. Their web address is www.ncjrs.gov. If you have questions about this or any other application, you can submit it at at grants@ncjrs.gov. And they are open 10 to 6 Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. We are wanting to do a hybrid court, veterans court. Can we apply for all 6 categories? I think is the question.
So this solicitation, we have 2 solicitations that are out. The one first being the Adult Drug Court Discretionary Grant site-based. That is for drug courts that are looking to apply for our 3 categories, which is our implementation, our enhancement category, as well as our statewide. This particular solicitation and webinar we did today is related to training and technical assistance. So I'm just making sure that that you're referring to the correct solicitation. So I'll look to see if there's any other questions, or is there a follow-up to that?
There is one other question, and the individual wants to know if they can apply to all 6 categories.
Yes, an organization can apply for all 6 categories. They would need to apply for each of those in a separate application, but yes, they would be able to apply to all 6 categories.
So I'm going to move the slide to the Stay Connected, so if you would like to go ahead and write down any information so that you can follow BJA along on Facebook or Twitter, you can do so. And there's also information on this slide for the Drug Court and Veterans Treatment Court website.
Okay, so it looks like we don't have any more questions. I do like to thank everyone that's come on today. You have my contact information. If any question that you have come up outside of this webinar, please reach out to me, either email me or contact me at the number that you see on the screen, and I'll respond back and to your questions. But again, I'd like to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar, and I want to give you hopefully good luck in your process applying for this grant. Thank you, everyone.